Well, good afternoon. Good to have you with us still on this special broadcast. It's 1 p.m. and we are nowhere close to announcing the results for Bihar elections. What we can tell you is that the NDA is leading. They have a lead right now in 127 seats out of the 243, and which is why what you see on your screens are visuals of BJP and JDU parties in a bit of a celebratory mode. Mahagathbandhan is leading in 105 seats, and the LJP's lead has now dropped to 2 seats, while the others have gained now and their leads have gone in 9 different seats. What is, though, interesting to point out is because of COVID protocols, additional polling stations that were set up this time around, the counting that we are looking at round by round is moving a little slowly, and which is why the numbers are also changing slowly, which is why we will say it's too soon to call these elections. But even as the counting continues, the vote share for most of the parties seems to be in the same, on the same lines as they have been for the last 1 hour or so. NDA now, with a comfortable lead, though the numbers have dropped. They had crossed 130 at one point. They've come down to 127. It will continue to change. We are also standing by for a news briefing by the Election Commission, and that's a little odd and rare to see in the middle of counting that the Election Commission decides to hold a news briefing, but one is slotted now at 1:30 p.m. So we will wait and watch out for and see. Right now, the update that's on your screens, 22.4% of votes have been counted so far. The Election Commission will have a lot more to tell us about that. In terms of the interesting insights that we've got for you, one, of course, is what we've been talking about in the region of Seemanchal, where the NDA seems to have done significantly well. There was a lot of conversation on whether the presence of AIMIM, other parties, is going to damage the Mahagathbandhan and eat into their vote share. It does look like that's happening. The other region which I want to talk about is Mithilanchal, where again what we are seeing is that the BJP seems to have done well. And that's something that I wanted to actually discuss with our panelists as well. Let's say good afternoon to those who are with me in this special broadcast. With us in our studios, our managing editor Vinay Tiwari, senior journalist Sanjay Singh continues to stay with us. Also, author and BJP leader Tuhin Sinha with us this afternoon. I also have Sarita Lifelong of the Congress Party. But first up, I want to go across to Mr. Yogendra Yadav, National President for Swaraj India. But Mr. Yadav, before I come to you and seek your comments as a politician, I want to use your expertise as a psephologist and the years of experience that you've had in tracking elections, your own sense of the numbers that we are looking at right now.
Tanvi, it's a little surprising. Usually around 1 o'clock we should be absolutely sure of the trend. Usually we should be calling who the winner is. Usually we should be in a post-mortem mode by now. The reason we can't do so is the following at the moment. That 22% votes have been counted and its counting is a little slow is one of the reasons. It is not clear how many seats have counted only the first round. Because, as you know, since the morning there have been ups and downs. Initially, Mahagathbandhan seemed ahead, then it changed. For the last couple of hours, the trend has been stable. And normally, when the trend stabilizes, you can assume that it is a picture which is more or less likely to stay. But as you mentioned, Election Commission is holding a presser at 1:30, which is very, very unusual. Election Commission, at least my mind, in the last 20, 30 years, I don't remember this ever happening. Vinay Tiwari is here and he could also enlighten. I don't remember something like this happening. So do they have something important to say about why their counting is slow? So the counting is slow, and some of the trends are counterintuitive because when the elections were called, at that moment BJP and NDA seemed comfortably ahead, so much so that BJP went into this rather dangerous game of trying to cut Nitish down to size while winning it. If the trends hold as they do right now, then of course BJP has succeeded in this very high-risk game. But when the elections were progressing, from the ground report suggested that in the course of the campaign, RJD and Mahagathbandhan picked up some steam, which was confirmed by the exit polls. And usually, over the years, I have seen that in Bihar, RJD and Mahagathbandhan are never overestimated by the polls. They are usually underestimated for some very technical and sociological reasons. So today, in counting for the NDA to emerge ahead is surprising. And that's one of the reasons why I thought one should wait a little more to be absolutely sure of the trends. It would help if someone could tell us how many seats are reporting only round one, because that could be postal ballot. And that could be one of the reasons why we should be slightly more cautious. The Election Commission has told us that the number of booths has gone up dramatically this time. There's nearly 1.5 times more booths than before. Therefore, counting, which is somewhat slow in Bihar to begin with, would take more time. But if you have 5 to 6 rounds of votes being counted, about, let's say, 1/3 votes being counted in most of the seats, then there is no reason why we should feel unsure of the trend. That's simply a technical clarification for viewers who may be slightly confused about where we are looking at and can we be sure.
Okay, interesting what you mentioned here, and I just want to also point out, while we do check on how many seats are still stuck on round one, we do know that 21.4% of the votes have been counted so far. Of the seats where the vote difference is less than 500 is 22. 22 seats are seeing a vote difference of less than 500. 46 seats have are actually right now seeing a vote difference of less than 1,000, and 175 seats with a vote difference or a seat margin of 5,000. So yes, which is perhaps also a reason why we are also taking it slow and nobody has called the election so far. But just on some of the insights what we're getting, Mr. Yogendra Yadav, again, too soon to maybe make this a final judgment, but in the Simhanchal region, for example, the Mahagathbandhan seems to be doing poorly. Now, with a Muslim population of over 40% in several of these constituencies, what would you attribute this to? The fact that they've stuck to the NDA, or AIMIM has worked as a strong vote cutter?
Now, this Simhanchal region of Bihar, which is eastern part of Bihar, which is actually very close to Bangladesh. We don't realize how close it is to Bangladesh in terms geographically, because the strip of West Bengal that separates is a very, very narrow strip. There is a substantial Muslim population. But when we say substantial Muslim population, we are looking at 30, 40%, in some cases 45%. That doesn't mean that Muslims decide the election. That still remains that actually Muslims are still a minority. And what happens in many of these areas is, and has been the case, and we have observed it over the years, that when the proportion of Muslims goes up in population, there is a possibility of counter-mobilization, and BJP has been successful in many elections to do counter-mobilization. So the reasons could be two. The reasons could be A, that there was a very strong counter-mobilization by the BJP. The reason could also be that AIMM, All India Muslim Ittehad-e-Muslimin party from Hyderabad, has been able to cut into the votes which were likely to go into the RJD. We really need to see if someone has some insights into the votes of AIM in those constituencies, we would know. But we could be looking at one of those two reasons. The other insight we have from the regional picture of Bihar is that in Bhojpur and Magad region, where the left has traditionally been strong in Bihar, there the Mahagathbandhan is doing rather well. So in a sense, it's a strange north-south axis which is developing in Bihar. In North Bihar, in Mithilanchal, in Tirhut division, Muzaffarpur that used to be called, and in the east, NDA is ahead. And in the part below Ganga, that is Bhojpur and Magad, much of that is where Mahagathbandhan is ahead. That's the picture so far.
Okay. One other question, and this is basically, the numbers breakup that we're getting right now. is how within the MGP various parties are performing. For example, and you mentioned the left. The left, in fact, while they're contesting on 29, they're leading in 19 seats. That's a good strike rate for them of 65%. The Congress, on the other hand, is leading only in 20 of the 70 where they're fighting. Do you believe, Mr. Yadav, that maybe Tejashwi, it was a wrong call for Tejashwi to give 70 seats to the Congress party?
This is one of the early trends that we can say with some degree of confidence that the left is doing well, and the areas where left has its hold, there the Mahagathbandhan as a whole is doing well. So clearly the alliance with the left seems to have worked. The alliance with Congress, Congress's strike rate is substantially lower than the rest. And that's in fact a problem that Congress poses throughout the country. In Bihar, it is clear what the left has to offer. The left brings to table votes of the poor, votes of the agricultural labor. It is not clear what is it that Congress brings to the table to get 70 seats. So someone must be thinking right now, what if we gave the left a little more seats than we already gave them? And if we gave Congress less seats than we gave them, that's someone in Mahagathbandhan must be thinking right now. Similarly, we should notice that the strike rate of JDU is substantially lower than the BJP. There are, of course, good reasons for that.
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, that one perhaps also something that we've repeatedly discussed, where the BJP would at some point think that they went wrong by giving so many seats even to the JDU, maybe even would have gone solo. What is your view on that? Before I take that across to the Congress representative, your view on whether they should have given so many seats to JDU?
In this case, the real question was not whether they would give lesser seats to JDU, because it's a very tight Mahagathbandhan. In the case of Mahagathbandhan, how many seats to be given to Congress was really an option. Within NDA, how many seats to be given to JDU was not an option. JDU was not going to settle for anything less than the BJP would get. And remember, JDU was being targeted by Chirag Paswan. This was a targeted attack on Chirag Paswan. After some time, we should have a clearer picture on whether that targeted attack helped JDU complain, sometimes in private, sometimes in public, that the BJP was supporting, was in many ways behind that campaign against it by Chirag Paswan. So whether JDU's lower strike rate has to do with the lower popularity of Nitish Kumar, which was quite evident during the ground reporting, or how much of it is responsible, is due to Chirag Paswan's attack. That's something we should know in a couple of hours from now.
Yeah, but I think the jury's still out on that one.
Worse than that.
On what is it exactly that Chirag Paswan ended up achieving? But Sarita Lifelong, good afternoon to you. Would you like to respond to what Mr. Yogendra Yadav is saying, and also on your own party's performance right now, leading in just 21 seats?
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
We have to first understand that the 70 seats given to the Indian National Congress, about 95% of these seats are totally NDA bastions. So all these seats have been the strongholds of the NDA. And the Congress party has done its best when it comes to fighting the election. We have put our best foot forward, and we definitely know that we are going to have favorable results. And as the day rolls out, I think the Mahagathbandhan would be forming the government.
You're still confident that that's going to happen? We're looking at 107 leads, while NDA actually has been beyond 122 now for some time.
Basically because of the COVID protocol, what has happened is that there has been an increase of 67% polling booths. And out of 4.5 crore votes, about 87 lakh votes have been counted so far. So I think it's going to be a very long day, and I think let's wait and watch. And as you mentioned that the margins are very close, so it's about 500 to 1,000, and some of them are about 5,000 votes.
Yeah.
So let's wait and watch as the day rolls out, and then we are definitely looking at a favorable result.
Well, Vinay, at this point, I'm wondering if we should have even started at 6 a.m., but started a little later and prepared for midnight broadcast instead.
Yeah, I spent the last week actually praising the Indian election system because the US couldn't get its count right and they just kind of dragged on. Little did I expect that 3 days later we'll have our own slow version of accounting. But look, I mean, I think as long as we get it right, it's better to be slow.
Right.
And yes, I think, Sarita made a valid point. The number of polling stations have gone up this time because of COVID. And obviously that means there are a greater number of EVM machines that have been used. So that could be one factor because look, at the end of the day, every EVM machine, if I just break it down very simply, is wrapped in a marking cloth, as they call it. That white color cloth is marking cloth, which laga ke seal is put on it. That does take its own time. And obviously they have to show that machine to the counting, the election agents of various candidates. Forms have to be filled in, RO have to sign all of that. So it does slow things down a little bit. And I think with VVPAT coming in any case, final declaration gets slower. So that's something that I guess we should have anticipated in the sense that there are a greater number of polling stations. But yes, I mean, this is clearly going to be a long day. It's not over yet.
Okay, interesting, and that just means that we will have to wait and watch maybe closer to the evening, and I think that's the sense repeatedly we are getting even from the Election Commission that just about 20-21% votes have been counted, so any clarity will only come by evening. Yes, Mr. Sanjay Singh.
Taking off from what Yogendra Yadav was saying, I always admire his expertise on those matters. See, what he was saying that in areas, say we were talking about Bhojpur and Magad, and even your own report was saying, showing Bhojpur and Magad region, RJD did substantially better than any other part of the state. These regions also have a long presence of two situations, A, the left, and B, the left movement, as it is, and also radical left movement. CPI-ML has substantive presence in those areas. And we have seen instances in past when there used to be IPF and then they used to have an MP from there, and also once a good number of MLAs. In fact, at one point in time, IPF had larger number than Samta Party to begin with, when Samta Party was formed. So that presence plus RJD's own support is complementing each other's support base, and therefore these numbers have gone up in Magad and Bhojpur region. Also, these were the areas which went in the polls in the first phase, and JDU's numbers in terms of candidates put in was far higher than the numbers put up by the BJP in terms of their seat alliances and sharing. So that gives an indication as to how and why RJD numbers are substantially up. The CPI-ML and CPI have also won good numbers. These figures currently are showing 20, which is a very, very impressive number.
Which is a great strike rate because I think they were left with only 29 seats.
Yeah, 29 out of 20.
After RJD contesting 144 and Congress 70, which makes it 214, that would only leave the left with 29 seats. So if they are leading on 20 out of those 29 seats, that's unexpectedly a great
that
performance.
leaves the question: why did RJD give 70 seats to the Congress?
I have a question for you
interesting situation, an interesting observation which I've made to Congress spokesperson. They willy-nilly have blamed the RJD. No, RJD.
For giving them the seats which was BJP's stronghold. Okay. Vinay, you had a question?
Yogendra, I had a question for you. Look, I mean, obviously, when we are looking at the different seat distribution that has happened in the election, we see that the left strike rate is way better than that of the Congress. If we were to go by what's happening at 120 right now, they are leading in far more seats than possibly Congress is as opposed to what they got. Now, but one of the theories that I have is that communism thrives when there is greater amount of misery, and the fact that the left is doing better than what some people may have expected also tells you that there was possibly misery at the ground. They were distressed. Congress just didn't know how to fill it in. And it's just a continuing story of how they just don't know what to do in politics. Would you agree that the better performance by the left tells you that there was a bit of a problem on the ground, or is that a too simplistic an explanation?
Well, Bihar is one of the few places where outside West Bengal and Kerala, where the left has still a presence. It's one of the few places in the country where CPI is a bigger party than CPM, where CPI-ML is the biggest faction of the left, which has had a strong presence. So yes, the coming of the left with RJD, what it did was that it made it completely into haves versus have-nots fight. RJD, in any case, is a party that gets greater support from the poorer sections, apart from its caste base of Yadavs and Muslims. So the coming of the left actually helped that. And yes, in general, left did better. Left does better when when economic situations are very bad. But that winner would still not tell us what exactly happened in the rest of Bihar, because the conditions presumably were equally bad across the entire length and breadth of Bihar. And the northern areas of Bihar, where the results are relatively better for NDA, are areas which have some of the highest misery in the world, not just in India. If you travel in North Bihar, I mean, as you do, as I do, you begin to wonder whether you are in sub-Saharan Africa. The conditions are that bad. The point about Congress, I think, is very important. It is entirely unclear what does Congress stand for. In any negotiation, what does Congress bring to table? I think that what the Congress spokesperson said may have been a fair point, but the point is this. Maybe the bargain was this. We'll give you 70 seats just to please you, but we'll give you weak seats so as to ensure that we don't lose too much. That may well have been the part of the bargain.
Yeah, which is what the Congress spokesperson almost admitted when
in
she
a
said
way,
that,
they just put it differently.
Yeah,
Sarita says,
yeah.
well, we're having a tougher time because these are all BJP stronghold seats. But thank you so much, Mr. Yogendra Yadav and to Sarita Lifelong for joining us. Yes, go ahead, Sarita. Last word to you before I wrap this conversation.
Yeah, so I never blamed the RJT, just to make it clear. We are happy to have been fighting on the 70 seats, and we have given it the best, and we will definitely be successful in what we are doing.
Okay. On that word, we'll connect with you later in the evening once we have perhaps more clarity on which way the results are going. Hold on to that thought, because I really need to take a very quick break. We want to be ready, all set before the Election Commission news briefing starts. Sure. So a short break. On the other side, the EC is going to hold a news briefing shortly, but they have already said that the counting is moving a little slowly. So far, about 21% of the votes have been counted. Lots more on the other side. Stay with us.